Hello students, welcome back. Today we are going to continue with the first chapter of civics, the Indian Constitution. In the first video, we studied about why does a country need a constitution, what is its requirement, what are the reasons that we require a constitution in a country. So now we will continue with the next topic, that is the key features of Indian Constitution. So let's start with this topic. As we all know that during the freedom struggle, the leaders, the freedom fighters had devoted a great amount of time to imagine and plan what a free India would be like. Under the Britishers, obviously they had been forced to obey rules that had very little role in making. The very long experience of this type of rule, this authoritarian rule, this dictatorial rule under the colonial state, convinced Indians that free India should be a democracy in which everyone should be treated equally and allowed to participate in government. Now, what was remained to be done was to work out the ways in which a democratic government would be set up in India. Now, this was obviously not done by a single person. The constitution was not made by a single person, but by a group of around 300 people who became the members of the Constituent Assembly in 1946. And they kept on meeting periodically for next 3 years, and the Indian Constitution was finalized. Now, obviously, these members of the Constituent Assembly, they had a very big task in front of them. They had a very huge task in front of them, because the country, that is India, it is made up of several different communities. It is a very diverse country with so much diversity, be it on language basis, be it on caste basis, or be it on region basis, or whatever basis. Apart from that, when the constitution was being written, India was already facing a very tough time, because at that time the partition of India was going on and India and Pakistan were getting separated. So some princely states remained undecided about their future. Some were still deciding whether to join Pakistan or India. Some decided to join India, some decided to join Pakistan. And because of the looting of the wealth of India by the Britishers, in a vast mass of people appeared decimal, because their socio-economic condition was very bad at that time. So these all facts were to be kept in mind while the constitution was to be framed. So they rose to the occasion and gave the country a visionary document that reflects a respect for maintaining diversity while preserving national unity. Both obviously are important. That diversity should also be maintained, the diversity should also be respected. Apart from that, it should be a united country. So both things have to be kept in mind. So the final document also reflected their concern for eradicating poverty through socio-economic reforms as well. That means that even how to remove the poverty in the country was also kept very well in mind while the constitution was being drafted. Now, if we talk about the key features of the constitution, first is federalism. Now, this refers to what? Federalism refers to existence of more than one level of government in India. Now, in our country, we are having governments at central level, state level, and the local level, be it panchayati governments, that is your Zilla Panchayat or Gram Panchayat, or be it your municipal corporation. These are the local level governments. You have read about Panchayati Raj in class 6th and the state level government working in class 7th. So, this is what is federalism. Now, obviously, there are vast number of communities in India, and that required that not only the person sitting in the capital city of New Delhi is involved in decision making, but even the people who are living in various states and the people who are living in villages also are involved in decision making some or the other way. So it was important to have another level of government in the states, so that the decisions could be made for that particular area. So while each state in India has a good amount of autonomy on certain issues, Subjects which are of national importance, national concern, they are under the central list, for which only the central government can make the rules, like defense, like international relations. So these are certain subjects on which only the central government can make rules and regulations. So that's why the constitution has three kind of list. One is your central list, one is your, that is called the union list actually, one is your state list, and one is your concurrent list. State list includes those subjects on which only the state can make rules, and concurrent list are those subjects on which both state and central government can make rules. Now, under federalism, the states are not merely agents of federal government, but they also draw their authority from the constitution as well. All persons in India are governed by laws and policies made by each of these levels of government, that is central government, state government, or local government. Now the next major feature of constitution is parliamentary form of government. Now, as you all know, the Indian constitution guarantees universal adult suffrage or universal adult franchise to all the person who are of and above the age of 18. When the members of the Constituent Assembly were thinking about making the constitution, about drafting the constitution, the members of the Constituent Assembly, they ensured that the people of India have a direct role in electing their representatives. Also, every citizen of the country, or irrespective of his or her social background, can also contest in elections. This was also ensured in the constitution. These representatives who are elected by the people, they are very much accountable, very much answerable to the people, as they have been elected by the people of the country only. So this is the parliamentary form of government. Now let's come to the next characteristics of the constitution, that is separation of powers. Now, according to the constitution, there are three organs of government. These are the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, the legislature refers to our elected representatives, our MPs, our MLAs. The executive is a smaller group of people who are responsible for implementing laws and running the government. Now, the judiciary consists of the Supreme Court, the High Courts, and the subordinate courts. This has been done to prevent the misuse of power by any one branch of the government. The constitution says that each of these organs should exercise different powers. So through this, each organ acts as a check on the other organs of government, and with this there is a balance of power between all the three organs of the government, that is your legislature, your judiciary, and your executive. Now let's move to the next characteristic of the Indian constitution, that is fundamental rights. Now, fundamental rights have often been referred to as the conscience of Indian constitution. Fundamental rights protect citizens against any kind of misuse of power by the state, any kind of uncontrolled use of power by the state. The constitution guarantees the rights of individuals against the state as well as against other individuals too. The constitution also guarantees the rights of minority against the majority. Dr. Ambedkar said about these fundamental rights that the object is twofold. The first objective is that every citizen must be in a position to claim those rights, and secondly, these rights must be binding upon every authority that has got the powers to make laws. Now, if we talk about various fundamental rights, first is right to equality, then right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, right to constitutional remedies. Now, if we talk about right to equality, now in the eyes of law, each and every person is equal, and it does not discriminate against anyone on the basis of their religion or caste or sex. Every person has access to all public places, including playgrounds, hotels, shops, etc. No one can discriminate and no one can stop anyone from accessing these things. Now, the state cannot discriminate against anyone in the matters of employment also, and the practice of untouchability has also been abolished totally. The next right is right to freedom. Now, this includes the right to freedom of speech and expression. We are free to speak, we are free to express our what our opinions are. The right to form associations, right to move freely and decide in any part of the country. We cannot be stopped from moving from one state to another state in our country. We have full freedom, and we have the right to practice any profession, whatever profession we wish to, and do any occupation or do any business whichever we want. The third right is right against exploitation. Now, this right prohibits human trafficking, forced labor, and employment of children under 14 years of age. The fourth right is right to freedom of religion. Now, religious freedom is something very important in our Indian constitution. Every person, whoever it is, has the right to practice or propagate or profess or preach the religion of their choice. Now, the next right is cultural and educational rights. Now, the constitution states that all minorities, be it religious or be it linguistic means on the basis of language, can set up their own educational institutions in order to preserve and develop their own culture. So no one can stop them from doing this. And the last is the right to constitutional remedies. Now, right to constitutional remedies allow the people to move to court if they feel that, or if they believe that any of their fundamental rights have been violated by the state or by any individual, then obviously they can move to court and file a case over there. So these are the various fundamental rights we have in our country. Now, apart from these fundamental rights, constitution also have sections called directive principles of state policy. Now, these directive principles serve as a guide to the Indian state to make laws and policies that help reduce the poverty of the country, that help reduce the poverty of the public. So that is what is directive principles about. Now let's come to the last key feature of the Indian Constitution, that is secularism. Now, secularism means that a state which is secular will not officially promote any one religion or officially declare any one religion as the state religion. Like in India, we do not have any state religion. We treat all the religions equally. For us, all the religions are equal. So there is no state religion for our country. So these were the various features of our constitution. You now understand that what are the ways in which a country's history often determines the kind of constitution that the country adopts for itself. Now, Indian constitution obviously has been amended over the years to reflect new concerns of the polity according to the new situations, according to the new conditions of the polity. Often a major change in the constitution means a change in the fundamental nature of the country. So amendments do keep on taking place, but that is a requirement of the time. So students, that's it for today. We have finished with this chapter. Study this chapter very thoroughly, and if you have any kind of problem, do ask about it. Thank you.